Jay Z was recently accused of essaying a minor with Diddy. Before more information is revealed about this case, it appears like several billionaires who have been involved in his ventures, such as Warren Buffett and Jack Dorsey, continue to publicly stand by him. Additionally, the NFL and companies like Roc Nation and Tidal, both integral to his business empire, are not currently distancing themselves from the allegations. But could this change? In a previous video, I covered possible secrets that could bring down Jay Z and Beyonce, in which we discussed his relationships with people like Diddy, R. Kelly, and Harvey Weinstein, as well as mentioning his questionable behavior with women much younger than him like Beyonce, Foxy Brown, and Aaliyah, all of whom were in their teens while he was in his late 20s or early 30s. This controversy has reignited questions about his immense power and influence, and it serves as a timely backdrop for today's discussion. Recently, I've covered both Jay Z and Diddy in previous videos, exploring their ties to billionaires and the layers of protection these alliances afford them. Diddy's own shield seemed to have crumbled recently, and it looks like Jay Z is next. Even though there are still some investors standing by him, as more information comes out, they could easily drop him like other investors did with Diddy. This could especially be true if Jay Z steps on the wrong billionaire toes. On this channel, we cover topics related to psychology and spirituality. Both psychology and spirituality involve being aware of the world around you, how we are affected by it, and the lessons we can learn from some of these societal issues, like what happens in the music industry. In this video, we'll examine Jay Z and Beyonce's relationships with billionaires and how their charitable initiatives are less about altruism and more about self-enrichment. It seems like their role as gatekeepers in the music industry is coming to an end, given similar patterns to what's happening to Diddy. We'll also connect this to broader criticisms of elite philanthropy and organizations like the Sunrise Movement and 350.org, which have raised concerns about working too closely with the billionaires that they're supposed to be fighting against. As always, we'll wrap up with spiritual lessons we can draw from some of these stories. Jay Z's rise to billionaire status wasn't achieved in isolation. He's built strategic relationships with powerful figures like Warren Buffett, Jack Dorsey, and Michael Bloomberg, all of whom have played key roles in his success. Buffett, for example, publicly endorsed Jay Z as a symbol of capitalist achievement, with both benefiting from this partnership, Buffett gaining cultural relevance, while Jay Z secured financial clout. But here's the big question. Did these relationships truly empower Jay Z, or did they make him a tool in perpetuating the very inequalities he claims to have overcome? From a Marxist perspective, Jay Z's wealth, while impressive, is rooted in a capitalist system that disproportionately benefits the elite. By aligning with figures who profit from exploitation, he becomes part of the system that maintains wealth disparities, rather than challenging them. His success, while personal, doesn't dismantle the structures that continue to oppress Black communities. Also, take a look at the billionaires who he's working closely with. Let's start with Warren Buffett. Buffett's investments and actions have been scrutinized for perpetuating wealth inequality, particularly in industries like fossil fuels, healthcare, and insurance. These industries disproportionately impact marginalized communities. His long-standing ties to companies like Berkshire Hathaway and Geico have been criticized for their treatment of Black workers or customers, which has led to the accusations that his investments benefit from economic systems that disadvantage people of color. Buffett's wealth accumulation strategies are built on backs of working-class people, many of whom are from marginalized communities. Additionally, Buffett's investments in companies like Coca-Cola and Duracell have been linked to concerns over environmental impacts, particularly in developing countries where Black and Indigenous communities are affected. Coca-Cola in particular has faced environmental and labor controversies, such as accusations of labor rights violations and environmental damage in countries like Colombia. Now let's take a look at Jack Dorsey. As the co-founder of Twitter, which is now known as X, and the creator of Block, formerly known as Square, Dorsey's platforms have been criticized for their role in consolidating power among elites while limiting free speech. Under his leadership, Twitter has faced allegations of suppressing dissenting voices that challenge powerful political and corporate interests. Critics, including investigative journalists like Whitney Webb, argue that platforms like Twitter have been weaponized to silence political dissidents and activists, especially those who are exposing corruption and state surveillance. Additionally, Dorsey's companies have contributed to the growing surveillance state by enabling mass data collection on users, further entrenching the power of intelligence agencies and large corporations. This collaboration between tech giants and the state undermines democratic principles, as private entities like Dorsey's are complicit in controlling public discourse and privacy. Finally, we'll look at Michael Bloomberg. Bloomberg, through his media empire and political influence, has been accused of contributing to policies that negatively affect Black and low-income communities, particularly with his stance on stop and frisk policies during his tenure as mayor of New York City. This policy, which disproportionately targeted Black and Latino men, has led to ongoing criticisms of Bloomberg's legacy in terms of racial justice. Additionally, his company's reporting and editorial choices have sometimes been accused of failing to sufficiently highlight issues affecting Black communities. From a spiritual standpoint, true wealth is about living consciously. One cannot do that if they are a big participator and enabler of a system that inflicts harm on others. Despite his influence, Jay Z is not doing anything to raise consciousness or to change an unjust system. True wealth is about service to others and uplifting the collective. Jay Z's accumulation of wealth in a system that prioritizes individual gain over community welfare can be seen as a betrayal of those spiritual values. By becoming part of a capitalist elite, he distances himself from the collective responsibility to uplift others, which is central to spirituality. At the end of the day, by living materialistically and gluttonously, Jay Z is inflicting harm on himself by thinking he can attain peace through selfish gain in a manner and through a system that causes harm to others instead of through seeking true happiness and consciousness. When you are gluttonous for money or other material items, you think that nothing is ever enough. And this is where Jay Z is at right now. How can one live at peace by always wanting more and always feeling insecure about power? The energy that you put out into the world is the energy that you get back. Now let's shift the spotlight to Beyoncé. She's often celebrated as a champion for marginalized communities and a feminist icon. But how much of this image is carefully curated? Her philanthropic initiatives like Be Good often come with corporate partnerships, such as her collaboration with Adidas for Ivy Park. While these projects are framed as empowering, let's explore why they are actually not. Be Good is Beyoncé's philanthropic initiative supporting causes like disaster relief, homelessness, education, and economic empowerment, particularly through partnerships with organizations like the NAACP. It launched in 2013 and has funded scholarships and provided aid during crises such as Hurricane Harvey. This all sounds nice on the surface, doesn't it? But what this mostly looks like is an initiative designed to build up Beyoncé's image instead of providing any form of structural change. Maybe because if there was structural change, then there would be no need for such an initiative to make her look good. Pretty much, this is focusing on charity over systemic change. And if there actually was a systemic change, then we couldn't really look at Beyoncé at being at the top. For example, providing scholarships or aid during crises is important, but doesn't address the root cause of poverty, systemic racism, or economic injustice. Instead of pushing for policy reforms or advocating for dismantling the capitalist systems that perpetuate inequality, Be Good's efforts align more with charitable giving, which can be seen as a way to mitigate the visible effects of injustice without addressing the deeper issues of wealth and power consolidation. Ivy Park, Beyoncé's collaboration with Adidas, has faced criticism over labor practices in its supply chain. Workers at a Sri Lankan factory making Ivy Park garments were reportedly paid as little as £4.30 per day, well below what's considered a livable wage. Although Ivy Park defended its practices, claiming a rigorous ethical trading program with factory audits and inspections, the controversy highlights broader concerns in the global garment industry. These labor issues, including fear of speaking out for job security, raise questions about the true impact of Ivy Park's so-called empowerment initiatives. So what this brings us is to a broader critique of nonprofit and philanthropic efforts. While organizations like the Sunrise Movement, and 350.org advocate for change, their reliance on billionaire funding raises concerns. For instance, billionaire Tom Steyer, who's funded the Sunrise Movement, supports fake solution policies like the Green New Deal, which are reforms designed to maintain the status quo, preserving the wealth and power of the elite. Ultimately, this is not going to change anything. It won't change the system. It's just putting a pretty picture to make people think that these billionaires are trying to do something to help us out. The Green New Deal benefits large corporations rather than challenging the structures that perpetuate inequality. For example, investments in renewable energy like wind and solar primarily benefit big energy companies such as NextEra Energy, which are already heavily invested in these sectors. So instead of redistributing wealth or dismantling corporate power, the Green New Deal focuses on green capitalism, which still relies on fossil fuels and destroying the environment for resources like lithium and cobalt. Resources that we attain by destroying the environment in other countries, such as the ones in South America and Africa, for example, allowing elites to profit while maintaining systems that keep them in control. In other words, wind and solar are anything but renewable. Similarly, Be Good and other initiatives may focus more on branding than real impact, echoing this trend of wealthy individuals shaping what progress looks like without actually challenging the systems that protect their wealth. Let's now dive deeper into this broader issue, billionaire philanthropy. I'm sure we can all see that elite philanthropy often serves as a cover for tax avoidance and the preservation of power. For Jay Z and Beyoncé, their charitable efforts raise similar questions. Are their initiatives creating sustainable change, or are they just reinforcing their brand? Take the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as an example. While it's lauded for tackling global issues, it's also been criticized for consolidating power and avoiding systemic challenges. There are several examples that we can list off, like the foundation's focus on initiatives like vaccination campaigns, sidestepping underlying causes of health disparities such as poverty and lack of infrastructure, or its funding of genetically modified crops through its agricultural initiatives and how it can perpetuate the influence of multinational companies over public policy, or how it's faced scrutiny for its ties to companies that use tax avoidance strategies, such as Microsoft, which was co-founded by Bill Gates. We can go further down the rabbit hole of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in another video, but I have discussed it before in some of my old videos when I used to focus more on news coverage. Jay Z and Beyonce's philanthropy operates in a similar vein as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, focusing on visibility rather than real lasting impact. Now let's take a step back and reflect on all the spiritual lessons that we can take from all this. Number one, the illusion of true success. We often idolize self-made billionaires like Jay Z, but as more negative stories emerge, similar to Diddy's fall from grace, it begs the question, is this really success? If wealth is built on questionable practices and controversies, can it be called true success? This challenges us to reconsider the narratives we have been conditioned to celebrate and ask ourselves, what kind of success is worth pursuing? Is it one in which we seek personal gain at the expense of causing harm to others? Or is it one in which we strive for peace, wisdom, and true happiness while uplifting others? Number two, the danger of image over integrity. In the pursuit of wealth and power, authenticity often takes a back seat. This is a call to examine how much of our own lives are shaped by appearances versus genuine values. How often do we prioritize looking successful over being true to ourselves? The pursuit of wealth and power often demands a carefully curated image, and for celebrities like Jay Z and Beyonce, their public personas have become their greatest assets. Jay Z, for example, has built his self-made narrative with the help of powerful billionaires like Warren Buffett and Jack Dorsey, crafting an image of someone who rose from the streets to success. Similarly, Beyonce's Be Good Foundation partners with large corporations, creating an image of activism. But these philanthropic efforts often prioritize branding over genuine change. Just like these billionaires, many of us find ourselves questioning how much of our lives are shaped by societal expectations versus personal conviction. Number 3 is the role of power in spiritual growth. Power and wealth are often seen as tools to create change, but their impact depends on how they're used. Figures like Jay Z and Beyonce, with their immense resources, could use their power to uplift marginalized communities and to fight systemic inequalities, but instead, they often use their wealth to reinforce existing structures. If these resources were aligned with higher principles, such as promoting justice, environmental sustainability, or community well-being, their impact could be transformative. Imagine a world where billionaires channeled their resources not for personal gain or corporate partnerships, but for the collective good. There would be no billionaires because nobody needs that much money. Now, what if we all did the same in terms of how much we contributed to the community? How different would our lives and world be if we were guided by our highest values instead of the pursuit of success at all costs? This brings us to number 4, community and individualism actually interplay with each other. One lesson that emerges from the stories of Jay Z and Beyonce is the power of collective effort. This doesn't mean you have to abandon your personal needs. You still have to aspire to maintain a healthy life, but individualism and collectivism are deeply linked. Your personal practices and wisdom can help transform the collective, and in turn, the collective can take better care of you. Humans are biologically social creatures. Billionaires often present themselves as lone geniuses, but really, their wealth came from the backs of workers. Real impact comes from communities working together. In your own life, how can you shift your focus from individual achievement to collective well-being? Or see how your individual achievements can contribute to the collective well-being? So what's the main takeaway here? Jay Z and Beyonce's philanthropy mirrors the criticisms often leveled at nonprofits. They're effective at maintaining appearances, but less so at driving systemic change. But this isn't about them. It's also about us. We have the power to question the motives behind philanthropy, support true grassroots organizations that prioritize community-led solutions, and make sure they are not co-opted by the people who are manipulating them for selfish gain. We must also reflect on our own relationship with power and influence, and also shine a light on these dynamics by demanding more accountability from those in positions of power. For more information on the possible secrets that could bring down Jay Z and Beyonce, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching.